till I see him.
Look at it.
Well, we have a meeting starting 5 minutes ago.
Look at what it is.
I just had an military clinic in your life. That chair was obscured by this one, and I saw you going down. I thought, oh my God.
I'm okay with that. All right, come on.
Here we go.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Al, if you want to start with the roll call.
Sarda. Here. Gross. Here. Hoffner.
Here.
Ibom.
Here.
Moser.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Here.
Attorney Devlin.
Here. All right, the purpose of tonight's study session is to review our strategic planning document, and City Manager Amy Leon is going to lead that discussion for us.
Sure. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the Commission, and public that are viewing. Want to go over this draft of the 2019 through 2021 strategic plan based on the work that the Commission and department heads did back in January. We'll get right to the meat and potatoes, to what I call the inside of the menu here, with all of the various projects and initiatives to get towards your goals. I'll bring up a couple things that we're not certain of, but we just put somewhere for placeholders. But I also want to visit with you about what you see that might need to be changed or moved or edited or taken out completely. So what we did is we took everybody's notes from those 2 days, and if we saw, 10 or 12 people had crossed something out, then we took it off completely. If we saw a number of people jot something in, we added it to the categories. One of the things, for example, which we weren't really certain to do with, but we knew needed a place, is the 1929 water plant. So the future of the, right now that we put that under the heading of has a thriving and economy and vibrant downtown. One thing we know is that when we come online with our new water treatment plant, we'll be decommissioning the 1929 plant, and we're going to need to develop a plan and purpose for the old facility. And so because it's in the downtown, and we thought that the best use that we've talked about so far is to get that somehow back on the tax rolls generating revenue, is that we put it in sort of the economic downtown area. That could change as well if you think that's important. New additions is the 150th Air Show. We put that under innovative and collaborative as a new event, something that we thought was a new development. We also made some changes under internal operational goals. We added some of the City Hall construction projects, the wiring and the windows that we talked about. Under being open and engaging community, we added a Human Rights Commission. That was something that we didn't talk about, but that's been mentioned in the past and was written in on some of the comments. Also the Municipal Equality Index, something that's been talked about. We didn't talk about it that day, but something that could be worked towards to be a tool for welcoming new citizens. We did leave the aquatics facility on as a project since we've just scratched the surface there. And we did a lot of updating on the street projects under the neighborhood section. So many of our street projects went away, and we added some new street projects, also added some discussion about the sidewalk and sidewalk code. Beans, we talked a little bit about actively enforcing sidewalk repairs that day. So anything that you all see that you would like to edit or change, wonder why it went somewhere?
Amy, could you tell us a little bit more, and maybe I'm just not remembering, under the last column is an open and engaging community. We have comprehensive plan update and welcome new citizens.
Yeah, so the comprehensive plan update is, I believe the update is due, Dave, do you want to tell me what date? 2023. So that project is going to have to start in this next year or two because it is kind of a long process, and the Planning Commission has already started to look at that. So that's the general comprehensive plan. And then welcoming new citizens is sort of a new category. We didn't really know what to call it, so we welcome your guys' language there. But there's been quite a bit of effort on YPG's part, I would say, to help engage folks in terms of the Connecting Cultures Committee and some of those initiatives, so how we can support that, I think, with the aim to also support recruitment and workforce development.
I can add to that too. So where you see Human Rights Commission and Municipal Equality Index, I tie that to the YAPG's efforts and the Connecting Cultures project that's underway. It does address immigrants to our community, but it also addresses those individuals who are in the LGBTQ community and making a real effort to make sure that they are accepted and protected in our community. I think, based on the headlines we've seen coming out of our state legislature, that's something that we found that it's up to the cities to do. Brookings actually, as part of the Municipal Equality Index, they received a perfect score this past year, and so I received some citizen feedback on that. So the index has a number of things that they score communities on. Yankton has not been scored as part of it. And my apologies for not sending information out to the commission yet. It's been on my to-do list, but I hope it's something we can work towards in the next year. And part of that too would be a Human Rights Commission that would work on a non-discrimination ordinance for the community, which is something that Brookings has done. I just feel it's important work for us to do so we are economically and socially, culturally viable into the future.
Why haven't we been scored?
They score like the capital city in each state. They score the communities with the 2 largest universities. I think the top 5 population-wise communities. So we just don't fit their normal criteria. You can request to be scored, and so that's something I would hope we would be able to do once we've actually taken some efforts to meet their criteria, which is something that, I mean, cities in every single state have been working on this and have made great strides. So I think we can do it too.
Other comments you have? One comment that I received from staff was under the beautiful park category. We have collaborate on improving sports facilities / fields. The suggestion was to add in recreation, so to also add programming. And the suggestion maybe was that Fox Run could maybe be taken off of there since we've collaborated on that for now. Not that we're going to ever complete it, but that we found a method to partner.
Amy, in regards to the second column on the old one about implement property maintenance code, I don't know, is it on the new one somewhere in a little, maybe a different form, but I think it's important enough to keep on the forefront.
It isn't. After our discussion on that Saturday, we kicked around like, do we leave it on? Do we take it off? And we took it off. We can certainly put it back on there, or we can put something like partnering with brush of stroke of love or brush of paint. But I don't know what it's called. What's that program called? The brush of kindness. The most that we got out of the conversation, the most direction that we understood was that we were to do something to try to bolster and partner with that program. So we could put that on there, or if the commission's more comfortable with returning to, adoption of elements of the property maintenance code as needed,
thought the conversation at the meeting was, we don't want to add more people right now, which means if you increase the code, you've got to add people.
Well, I didn't really necessarily think we should increase the code, but I think it's enough of a priority in my mind to have it listed so we can look back and whether it's monitor or, be aware. I know we are, but it seems like not necessarily that we're going to increase it, but maybe monitor or, just a not to.
It's like
put it
monitor
back.
the feasibility of implementing.
Yeah, something. That's just how I feel. The rest of the commission feels that way.
I think again, the conversation was, we've done so much in the last couple of years that rather than go to what you might describe as the next level, let's continue with what we're doing now because it seems to be working.
Good point. Continue with property maintenance code.
Or continue with existing code enforcement. How's that?
I'm gonna do you one better, Ross. Continue efforts of property maintenance and nuisance abatement. That leaves some wiggle room if we decide we can implement some portions of the code and adopt them going forward, or if we could do something with the brush of kindness. While you're continuing to think on that side, I'll just note that on the opposite side, we did make a few changes as well. You see that we added the SMART growth under trends driving our decisions, and that SMART was specific, measurable. I got to look up the other ones. Sorry. I had them memorized before I came here. Specific, measurable, assignable, relevant, and time-based, so that our growth was smart in that regard. Changing consumer trends we added. We talked about, we changed some language on a few. I think maximizing resources is a change in language, also addressing infrastructure and aging equipment. And then I do not think we added anything to the values except welcoming. Transparency, is that new?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a good one.
The one thing that I'd bring up is the 1929 water plant, so I'm glad you called that out, but knowing too that that plant is in an opportunity zone and might mean that we'd want to add other entities, perhaps community development into that, even YAPG possibly.
Yep, good thought.
And I believe it's like right on the border. Yeah.
You know, we didn't talk about opportunity zones during our strategic planning, but that might even warrant its own bullet point under being innovative and collaborative. As we learn more about them, I think we're going to learn about what opportunities those might bring by means of economic development and community development.
Have we had any interest in that building?
Yes, we've had a number of parties contact us over a number of years, and we've informed the two most serious ones that once we're at a point where we know date certain that we're going to be decommissioning the plant, we will talk to the commission about whether or not they'd like to do an RFP for that building, for reuse. We have to do a little digging to determine what we can do, since that's may or may not be part of our park. If it's part of our park, it might have to be a lease situation as opposed to a sale. And the commission, doesn't mean we can't sell it, but if the commission wants to sell it, there might be more steps in the process. So I think there would be interest. And I know for sure one of the parties has asked recently. And both were commercial uses, so it could be a good thing.
I wasn't here, but I know that when they tried to sell Trip Park to the grocery store, they had some real kickback from the community. So.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's considered park property or not. Are you, Dave? So down the line, next year at this time, we'll be visiting a lot about that pretty heavily. So while you're deciding if there's any other things you'd like to change, one of the things the staff and I would like to bring to you to consider is whether or not you all feel that it's reasonable that we skip our first capital improvement project meeting of the budget. So typically, you'll remember that we meet in April, and then we meet again later in May. And in April, all of the capital improvement projects are just kind of dumped into each department. And we haven't honed in yet on what we think it's feasible that we can do. We haven't sat down with each department and sifted through them yet enough. And we bring them all to you, and we tell you about all of them, and then we tell you we don't have enough money to do most of them, and we'll have to bring something back to you with a reasonable amount of money. Is there anything that you guys really want to do? And typically we know which things that we really have to do and should be suggesting to you. We've had very few curveballs where we've been off guard and you guys have said, no, absolutely not. You need to focus on these streets instead of the ones you're suggesting. So I would recommend that we can make that one capital budget meeting and make it more meaningful, as opposed to having two, one which is less meaningful. But if you really like to have that first meeting and you feel it's important, we certainly will continue to have it. I feel like we have a lot more direction and we have a lot more focus by having this in place. When we didn't have this, it was a little more important to have more opportunities to discuss, but I feel like we know which way the ship is turning, so it's maybe less important to spend, two meetings as opposed to one, and that one may last a little longer than it typically has, but I think it might be more valuable time spent.
I'm all for less.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm all for less meetings. So when you're meeting with your department heads, then are you saying that they're basically going to tie back to this, anything that they're proposing?
Yes, we would tie back to this. If these projects aren't in 2019, they would be in 2020, unless there's some big community change, and then the larger things, the larger sort of concepts. For example, collaborating on improving sports, facilities, fields, and recreation. The 5-year plan should point back, for example, in Todd's department to reaching that goal. And of course, there's going to be little projects peppered in that we need to do. West Side Park is another example of where capital should probably be peppered in, because you've told us that that's one of the priorities once the plan is established. So. Yeah, we'll have other things put in there, and if we have major street failure, we may have to prioritize another street. But this is where the capital plan should be built off of. So we'll probably ask department heads to put together a longer range plan for us, using this as a guide.
And so I would just add that I think back to when I first came onto the commission, and it was before I was even, behind the desk here, and I got to sit in on a CIP meeting. It's entirely possible that up to a third of the city commission could be new faces come April. So just, I can speak to my own personal experience where I think it ended up being something that was accomplished in one night maybe. I don't think it was 2 nights. So that first meeting I thought was really beneficial to me. And if it were to happen, to be able to have whoever those new faces might be to that. I think the meetings happen, they're for the benefit of the public, but also obviously as city commissioners. So to help with that learning curve, I think would be useful.
If we have it a little later on in May, then we know who those folks are. Of course, they're public meetings, anybody can come. But we've kind of extended an invitation to the newly elected people when we know who they are. I see some moths coming out. Oh, it's. You're pretty sure of that, Charlie? Then we can spend all the money finally. We just have, some of us have felt, and I have felt for a number of years, that first meeting is interesting in that it gives a good sense of everything that we really need. But there's so many things that are in that first year. It's millions of dollars over what would ever be feasible, that it's a better use of your time to get it actually pared back to something that's digestible and for you guys to make some choices over, $5 to $10 million than $20 to $40 million is what we typically have in the first round. And that's just all things we need, but not really feasible that we're going to do that kind of capital. And Al won't throw as many chairs. And
I agree. I think the combination would work. We could probably get enough information sent to us individually to give us a heads up. It turns into, I think, FYI, and then we're thinking, well, this is just the preliminary, just giving us a heads up, and then we look forward to the real, it seems like the actual ones. I think we could combine them, and then if we had any questions, we can obviously.
You still have the budget meeting then in August. We usually plan 2 nights. We've only taken 1, but you'd still have those 2 nights. And you also have the whole adoption process to change those things. So.
Can we go to the first column where it says redefine retail strategies? I know we talked about it briefly, but what, please redefine.
Yeah, we Kristen and I kind of worked on that one a little bit, in the sense that retail has changed so much, and we know that sales tax is so important to our existence, but I don't think our retail strategy should or can be anymore focus on a big box and bring it here. I think, we've talked about focusing on the downtown and the hybrid approach between downtown and experience type retail, knowing that we probably won't be fortunate enough to have a big box retailer until we have a lot more rooftops. I think our new retail strategy needs to include an E strategy. And so maybe we're not looking at recruitment necessarily of, the next 3-letter Mart, but maybe we're working with YPG on a distribution center. And if that's something Napa Junction could help us with, or if there's some type of, I don't know. I know Amazon isn't coming to New York, so maybe they want to, maybe more tax friendly.
They're not going to relocate.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's too big to wish for, but some type of e-commerce that isn't location specific. If that's a better strategy than trying to focus on the next chain that everyone thinks is going to be the big hit. Now, certainly we still want to work on change, particularly when it comes to our areas of leakage. But I think we should probably expand and educate ourselves a little bit on the next. What does retail mean in the new economy, and prepare for that.
I think it helps me to know that we are still, have our ear to the ground. I know Dave has mentioned many times about how folks are looking at Yankton. I just want to maintain that relationship or relationships to continually communicate with the entities. I know we backed off on a few trips, but to know that they are still looking at Yankton for possibilities. I'd hate to lose a link because retail is what it is. Therefore, we sit back. You know, I think we should still be proactive because there may be something coming down. I want to pick on Dave because he's falling asleep.
I would pick on him too. I think there's something to be said too for anything that's experience related. There's probably retail, a retail tie. So tourism, I think, is an opportunity for retail niches that we haven't always plugged into in our community, and that we might be able to do with the help of YPG and CVB. Archery certainly is another area that we have a built-in facility and network to, so that we should work towards that. The river and all those things that brings, and folks that travel to be near national parks and historic, I think those things all play together as well. The future of Port Yankton and what that could mean in the downtown could also be a determinant on retail and what that means for our current retailers, as well as, is there some strategy in helping folks that are not currently retailing online to do so? I don't know what the mechanics of purchasing craft beer online would be, if that's even legal in South Dakota. But, for example, I'm thinking about Ben's right now, and if, is there a way maybe we can redefine a retail strategy to help some of our existing retailers move to an online business? I don't know.
There's no doubt it's changing. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to end up.
I'm not either. I don't think anybody is, but I think we left that on there in the sense that we know that sales tax is a really important piece of our pie. It's one of the biggest pieces of our pie, and we have to continue to make sure that happens for us. We had a discussion this morning about concessions at the new aquatics facility and retailing, and what else do we try to do there to enhance the experience and the profit.
I just think that's an area that's of such importance to a lot of our citizens that we have to keep an eye on it.
Amy, one of the things I noticed, hopefully if we're done with that discussion, is under works together to pursue happiness and has welcoming and safe neighborhood, we've listed sidewalks twice. So it's under walkability, where we talk about sidewalk width and sidewalk reimbursement plan. And then underneath the second column, we put sidewalk code. Aren't those related? And
they are.
Are they appropriate to have under two different places? I mean, maybe there's justification to have it in two places, or does it tie one or to the other?
We can probably tie them together. I didn't catch that. I think we put sidewalk code under safety in that category, in the sense that we have sidewalks that are in need of repair, but it does tie in with walkability and intermodal transportation, so we can probably combine those. Probably go under welcoming neighborhoods, since there's more space there. My plan with this would be to let the department heads take a look at it, get their comments, and spruce it up, and then bring it forward to formally act on the next commission meeting. I've sent it to Bridget and Chris as well as Amy, so I'm going to get their comments as well.
Instead of welcome new citizens, could we say welcoming to all citizens?
We can say whatever you guys want.
And then do we have anything in here about civic engagement?
Well, we have increased citizen engagement and government transparency with our website refresh and crime mapping, providing more e-services. We did take out the body-worn cameras because those are in use I guess we could put, well, we could have put
I'm thinking
police
about
Twitter account, but
yeah,
they're
I'm thinking
on
about all
Twitter.
the social media engagement, like our Parks and Rec and Police Department are doing. We're looking at possibly new ways to do our annual survey.
Yeah, we have all those things. If we can certainly put those down. Relevant social media platforms or something like that.
Same open and engaging. Do we have a transparency problem? I mean, is there an impression in the community that we do things that are not transparent?
Charlie, you don't go on Facebook very often, do you?
Not if I can help it.
There may be. I think there's a general feeling in government in general that citizens want their governments, no matter how local or national, to be as transparent as possible.
We are. Am I the only one that thinks that?
No.
I agree with you, Charlie. I don't think, if people want to know, they go find out. I mean, some people just want it to be given to them every day, but I think all the information's there in my mind.
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of great things just in the last couple of years, whether it's live streaming our meetings or the things we've done to be more available and engaging with our citizens. So I don't think it's a problem per se. I think it's just another one of those things we need to continue to keep an eye on.
Is the word increase what's throwing us off?
Yeah,
More so than a better word for increase?
So maybe ongoing or
Maintain.
relevant citizen engagement and government transparency.
That's going to change over time as
Yeah.
things develop. So.
That's what I was thinking, relevant, because, maybe sending letters isn't as relevant as the text messaging or whatever, or relevant and responsive, something like that. We think we are, but of course we're inside the walls of City Hall, so, some people can certainly say we're not, but we try to get people information, as long as it's not, personnel information or medical information. We really try to be open books, and I think most of our staff are really accessible to the public as well.
I think we do an excellent job of transparency, but it's one of those things where you just want to always be aware of it, because things change, like you said, and be aware of what we need to do to make sure we change with the times, and constantly be thinking about being transparent as much as we can.
Seamlessness. Anything else?
I got to ask the question. Am I the only one that has had negative feedback on Port Yankton?
And not only on Facebook, but other places.
I was curious because I'm going, it says support Port Yankton, and I'm going, I understand what they're asking or what they're saying in that statement, but boy, I'm getting some negative feedback.
I think we're with today's vote where it's been defeated in the legislature, I think that's a discussion we're going to have again as a commission, is how committed are we to the project, because now you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get enough signatures to get on the ballot, not to mention the millions it's going to take for a advertising campaign. So yeah, we'll have to have a real serious discussion about where we stand as a commission. I should clarify for anyone watching that the city would not fund that directly, but we are a funder of Yankton Area Progressive Growth, which has been driving this, and we are the biggest funder of YAPG, so we have a big voice in that.
And I have not, I just got the word on the vote. I didn't get any of the explanations. So when I get the sort of fuller update, I'll forward it on to the full commission. And maybe that does warrant a discussion. Nathan and Bridget serve on the YPG board, and I'm on the executive committee. So if the commission has strong feelings on one way or another on how to move forward, I'll certainly bring that forward to the executive committee.
And I think the negative comments I've heard, just people not understanding the process and what's going on, and they're assuming a lot of things. So I think once you understand all the facts and hear a presentation on it, I think it clears a lot of things up.
So Charlie, given what you said, are you okay with just leaving it as is for now?
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
One question I'd have for the, like Nathan, we do have Meridian District included there, but is it fair to say though that this project, let's just say things do go the right way, that it's not set in stone that it would even be in the Meridian District?
Yeah, I think that's all up for discussion yet, depending upon how it shakes out. I think the initial idea is that it'd be a downtown project, or that some of the, at least the revenue would be utilized towards revitalizing the downtown.
One more question. Update restrooms at Riverside Field?
Yes.
The field. That's the baseball field?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
The ones in the park are,
I thought we had done the park.
Yep.
but-
so we're going to make them more of a 3-season restroom, because they, now with the turf, they play in the late fall and early spring. The turf on the Ted Cheritzin,
Tereshinski.
Bob Tereshinski Field.
Bob Cherit.
Tereshinski.
I'm thinking of, why am I thinking of Ted Mickelson? No one's named a field after him yet.
Turk.
Yeah.
Turk. Just say Turk.
Okay.
We all know who you mean.
Bob's Field. Later on, I'm going to try to say Shenahaw 3 times fast.
I can't do that. He's my boss.
So is that just an update of those bathrooms or a complete replacement?
It's an upgrade. We have to do some extensive work, but they won't be completely redone.
Well, I had 8 baseball players missing this morning from one of my classes.
They went where it was warm and the bathrooms were open, Charlie.
I think they were indoors. I think they went north and went indoors.
Oh, okay. I thought they were like in Kansas or the Ozarks or
That was a
somewhere.
softball.
Oh, mistaken.
The baseball team was there last week.
Are you proposing an indoor facility then?
No.
I just clarifying.
I just wanted to know where they were, and I'm going, 8. Half my class is missing this morning. No.
Yeah, if there's nothing further, we don't have to continue. We can close the work session, and we'll update this, and then we'll bring a version forward to the commission to act on at our March 11th meeting.
Is there any more commission discussion? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned until 7 p.m.